Welcome back to the Cinema Condition with your host, filmmaker, and creator of the Nerdcore Podcast Network, Raul Alejandro Mendoza. And as always, we are back here for another movie with another guest on the 26th episode of the Cinema Condition Season 1, and we are almost close to the end. We are in the final four. You guys didn't get to have a final four. Well, hold on. What am I talking about? Yeah, we had a final four. What's it called? Final four was in March Madness. It wasn't during quarantine. But I'm guessing the final four for the NBA Finals, if I'm trying to make a joke here. We didn't get a final four in the NBA Finals, but you got a final four here for the Cinema Condition starting next week. And as always, I am going to be bringing back another guest today. Last week, we had the wonderful Ayden Byrnes to discuss Midsommar, which you guys loved and you guys enjoyed. So thank you guys for tuning in to that one. But today, we're bringing back another guest for the last time. He is, again, coming back. He is my partner in crime and the man who runs the shows with me and helps me out a lot. That is none other than the host of the Nerdcore Live Show, the Nerdcore Podcast, and occasionally Unstructured with Young Yoda himself. Brad, how you doing?
Glad to be here, Raul. Thank you for that lovely introduction. And yes, Unstructured,
occasionally.
Whenever. Occasionally. Less than occasionally. Some days.
It would help a lot that the people would submit topics, right?
That's really not, I'm not going to put the blame on them. That's all on me. And, this is the show, the only show where I actually have to act somewhat serious.
Yeah.
So it's quite difficult. I have to get like my ADHD under control.
Yeah. Even though the Ham Dog episode is great.
I mean, the Ham Dog is legendary.
Yeah. Yeah. So Brad was here the first time for Ikiru. And then we did Grave of the Fireflies, and now we end his watch this season with The Farewell, with Lulu Wang's The Farewell that came out last year. But before we can do all that wonderful stuff, Brad, how you been?
Been well. Thank you for asking. And I just have to ask, Raul, what do you think of my film choices so far for this first season of Cinema Condition?
You honestly picked what is pretty much your, what kind of makes your film taste. You have your love of anime films, and then you have, of course, your love for Akira Kurosawa, and then you have like these new films that really surprise you when you get to see it. Like when you watched The Farewell last year, you were like really surprised at it and how you liked it. So it's not like our picks. It's not like our picks on the main show, right? But
no, sometimes I don't get those quite well or quite right. I'm not going to bring up Western history or Western month. No, not going to do that. I will say the one thing I did right with The Farewell is, even though I missed it when it first came out, I did go see it in my local theater when they were playing that, and that was only up for like one weekend, I think. Mm-hmm. So I managed to see it in theaters, and it's probably one of the better movie-going experiences I've had.
Yup, way back when we were able to go to movie theaters. But
anywhere. Able to go anywhere.
Yeah, pretty much anywhere. I was going to say that also, next, not going to say the only other pick that I can say that you chose was Stalker, because that's the one you've announced here. But the other ones I can't really announce them yet. But I'm going to say that next season's picks for you, you're looking at a good amount of movies that you're coming back with. So I'm pretty excited for next season when it comes to what movies you're gonna pick and what movies we're gonna discuss.
I'm excited for Stalker. That was a movie I was not expecting to like. It's one of those when we decide every year we get this 1 month, we're like, don't know who this director is, don't know what he's done, but you know what? Let's watch him. And Tarkovsky, I just wish the Cold War never happened and we had gotten to know about that man sooner.
Yep. Just got my Criterion orders in, so I got Stalker on Blu-ray. Can't wait to watch that on my TV here, and its beautiful transfer that it had. Because
is that an HD?
Yeah. What's it called? That's the newest. That was the newest transfer. I'm pretty sure the one that you watched was the newest transfer. If it's the one on YouTube that we watched, I think that's the old transfer. But
I thought I bought it.
oh, I don't know if you bought it.
Did I buy it or did I watch it on? I don't remember what I did. I just remember the coloring in that film.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like all the colors compared to like American cinema at that time or even now.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like Kool-Aid green and it just pops.
Yeah, and then the sepia tones that were in the beginning are beautiful. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know because by the way, I mean anybody who wants to get into the Tarkovsky, the movies are literally on YouTube. Like they have not been taken down. So like that's the easiest way for you to kind of get into Tarkovsky, unless you want to get the Criterion channel, which it has all the movies from Tarkovsky in there. So I know that I watched Stalker on YouTube. And the transfer on there, I think that's the old one because the Mirrors transfer was on there too, and that was the old one compared to the one I watched on the Criterion channel. So yeah, I can't wait to pop this one in because it's like digital transfers are different from the actual transfer on the Blu-ray because when Ayden was here for Through a Glass Darkly, when we talked about that one, he was like, oh man, you got to get the Blu-ray so you can watch it on there because the transfer from the Criterion channel is very, very different. Like the quality on the Criterion channel is very different from the Blu-ray version of the movie. So,
is the Criterion channel generally better?
The Criterion channel is great. Not gonna lie. What's it called? It's great. It's just like, I'm guessing what's it called? The quality straight from the actual Blu-ray disc is different because of course, like, on the channel, I'm guessing there's compression and stuff from having to watch it on there. But I'm excited though. I'm excited for us to do a Stalker next year. Possibly next year.
The only Criterion movies I actually have are Kurosawa movies.
Yeah.
So
I know you were looking for Ikiru, and Ikiru was on sale.
I have not yet bought Ikiru because I own it on digital. So I own that on Amazon. So it's like one of those things like I really want it, but at the same time it's like I want to eat.
Yeah, but it was on sale for $20.
I know, but I'm not like you who's going to buy like every movie. Like there was stuff I wanted.
I used the excuse. I used the excuse that they were for the podcast for this one, and I ended up getting 2 movies that weren't actually for the podcast that I bought for my own self, but the other ones are for the podcast. So that way it makes me feel less bad. But it's not like I can claim them as a business expense. But,
and I found it funny. We were supposed to review First Cow when it first came out.
Yeah.
And bro was like, I can't afford $14 for that, bro. And I'm like, all right, let's just do another one then.
But I can afford $20 for it. No, man, it's okay. Now we can watch it when it's $5.99 for the rental. But yeah, I'm really excited because this is a movie. If you guys have not been following us at the Nerd Court for what we've been hyping this movie up, this was our favorite movie of last year. 2019, and it's occasionally it's really tough when Brad and I kind of have the same opinions on certain movies, and there's like it's like sometimes it's like whoa, like we ended up having the same number one for last year in 2019.
Which if we go back, you were waffling on it, like you were going back and forth with a few other movies until the very end.
It's because I got that rewatch. Rewatch in. And now I'm telling you, on a third rewatch of this, man, I can't wait to discuss this movie because there's just so much. By the way, I mean, I screened this on Discord with Michelle. We were watching it, and she loved it. She adored this movie.
Oh, this movie is, to me, this movie's still my favorite from 2019.
Oh yeah.
This is probably my top 10 favorite movies.
Yeah, it
really is.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite movies of all time for sure. This is definitely still the best movie of 2019 to me. And I think that it's this and Parasite neck to neck. Honestly, there was something with Parasite. There was just something with this movie that I gave it that incline. And I guess we'll discuss it more when we get into it. But
I think what I said about this and Parasite, it was basically a tie.
Yeah.
But rewatching this again, the farewell just tugs at you. Yeah. Like there is something amazing that Lulu Wang. It's Wang, correct?
Yeah, Wang. Yeah.
Wang does that in this movie is just something that I really don't see in a lot of movies.
Yeah. And then I look at it as like, a first-time filmmaker, and then a filmmaker this was like their 6th or 7th movie that they've done.
Yeah, that's just straight up amazing.
It's like, okay, I gotta give the inch to Lulu here. Like she just made an incredible film here. But yeah, we're gonna go ahead and get into this. So of course we've never talked about the filmmaker known as Lulu Wang on this podcast. and this is her first and only film at the moment, so we're gonna get to introduce her pretty quick. Her what's it called? Lulu Wang was born on February 25th, 1983. She's a director, writer, and producer. She's mostly known for what's it called? The Farewell in 2019, but she also what's it called? She wrote and directed Posthumous in Posthumous in 2014.
Yes.
It's a what's it called? American German film directed by her. It stars Bill Marling and Jack Houston. I've never seen this. It's her directorial debut though, and yeah, I mean I that's probably one that I probably got to get into. But you know, her bio right here is pretty small. But this is her what's it called? Second film that she's ever made. And it is also probably one of the probably gonna be one of her most famous work going on. It was chosen as one of the top 10 films for 2019 by the American Film Institute, and she's also done several short films, documentaries, and music videos. But she basically has started getting more attention from Hollywood now because of The Farewell, and of course she is a Chinese American filmmaker, and yeah, this is kind of this story of this film. By the way, it's based on an actual true story from Lulu Wang, but she actually described this story during a radio broadcast, like a fictional story, a part of it, a radio broadcast of a story from like a radio show, I'm guessing, called "Of This American Life," and her story was called "What You Don't Know." And yeah, that's where The Farewell started its origins. And The Farewell is about a Chinese and Chinese American family that have learned that their matriarch has about 3 months left to live, and they decide to not tell the grandmother, not tell the matriarch, and they decide that they're going to use the wedding of a nephew slash cousin to go and spend their last final moments with the matriarch before she passes. And the film stars Aquafina in honestly what I think should have been a Best Actress nominated performance as Billy, this young Chinese American girl who learns about her grandmother's future passing. And as she, goes to China to spend time at the wedding / final moments with her grandmother, as she, maneuvers a culture that she just doesn't remember anymore because she left China at such a young age. So this movie is packed with so many things, but usually I'm not the person to I'm not a person to break my own rules sometimes, because I always say, this is not a review show. But I gotta say, my third time rewatching this movie, I love it so much. I gotta say that this movie is perfectly paced. Also, something I didn't really notice the first time around, how much I love the production design here and the locations that they chose, and how they frame these hotel rooms and these banquets, and especially in the food. The scenes where they're eating, how they frame that. Yeah. I love it. Yeah. The crabs. Yeah. They didn't give her damn lobster, man.
I mean, she signed up for the lobster and they let her down. But I just to add on to what you just said, I didn't notice this on my first watch. I don't know if that's because I got the whole theatrical experience of it, which I don't think, or it was more of I didn't know any better. And I mean, I've done a lot of reviews and stuff with you on different movies, so I've learned a few of the lingo per se. The lingo. Yeah. But this movie is just perfect framing after perfect framing after perfect framing in like every shot. Yeah. And for someone, was it second second movie?
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's crazy how like they open the shot is just framed perfect. And I'm just going, these shots are amazing. No wonder I loved this movie the first time.
Yeah. It's also just that what's it called? I love the what's it called? I'm trying to say, the color palette here is very grim. but it's also just kind of it's not this beautifully colored film where the colors pop so vibrantly, but it's kind of showing you how similarly, Billy sees New York and China at the same time, because it all carries the same coloring in the film. And it's like, how Billy kind of sees China and New York as, sort of similar in a sense, because it's where she's lived in both of these places. Mm-hmm. But, you see how different the New York is to China, because we spend more time in China in the film. But yeah, I got to agree with you. The framing is beautiful. The framing is just absolutely fantastic. There's never a moment where the film doesn't look like, oh, you didn't frame that correctly. Or like, oh, that doesn't seem like it's what was framed. Like, there's not a single moment in the movie. Even that scene where she's like, where Nai says that, she sent the lady to go pick up her test results, and Billy goes running, and we're getting that, the shot tracking her as she's running, but we're seeing the side profile. And you're like, that could have easily, went a little bit wrong, but it's just so beautifully framed, and it doesn't feel like it's like shaky or all over the place. It feels like it's just beautifully tracked.
No, Lulu Wang just shows her expertise in getting the shot. That's basically what she's done with this movie, is she knows how to set up and make a movie. Yeah.
And I got to say that that's just, she's got a promising career ahead of her, because this is just, it's like, this shows, this is a showing of a director who really understands her cast and crew, and understands how to utilize everything that she has for in her at her leisure, not leisure, at her expense. Like, she knows how to use this, use her resources here, and So, of course, Brad, this movie was on my radar in 2019 because of its showing at Sundance. And I said, oh man, Awkwafina in a dramatic role? Like, all I known Awkwafina for was the comedy and her rap albums. But, and I was like, oh wow, this is going to be pretty interesting. Kind of the sort of interest that I had in, Uncut Gems, because I was like, oh, here we have a primarily comedic actor who's coming in to do a dramatic role. I'm like, oh, this should be interesting. And then when Brad watches it and he uploads his review, and I'm like, I'm reading through this, I'm like, oh man, like, this looks like it's gonna be something. I gotta watch this soon. And I wanted to watch. I actually, fun fact, I don't think I ever sent this to you. I actually had a free screening for this. And you missed it, right? And I missed it because I wasn't in Houston at the time. Like, I think I had gone back for like vacations back home, and I missed it. And I that was my one and last chance to watch The Farewell in theaters. So then it comes out for digital, and luckily enough, it was before the year ended, and Brett was like, I'm buying this. Like, you need to watch this right now. And during this time is when my grandmother already had passed, and I kind of was very apprehensive on wanting to watch this film, because I said, this might be a little bit too personal, a little bit too close to home for me. But of course, when I first watched this film, I obviously was overtaken with tears, and I was very much emotional the whole time. But there was something really special that this film kind of had, and I kind of tweeted Lulu Wang about it, and I said there was something that this movie kind of taught me, and it was something that was very important about this movie, because it came at a time in my life where I kind of needed to watch something like this that made me, learn a lesson that I think that this film kind of makes you learn, is that the body doesn't stop mourning, and you never really stop mourning. And you carry these experiences with you. And I'm glad that I had that second rewatch, because on that second rewatch, it really cemented it for me. I was like, this is really good. This is near perfect film that is just incredible. And I don't even know what's coming next in her career, but I don't think it's going to be real hard to top this, because it's just so damn good. And then on this third rewatch, it's like there's more to this. There's like more to this beyond just a film about loss. There's so much conversations had in here about culture and identity, and about being of two different worlds. And I gotta say that thank you to Lulu for liking my tweet when I sent it to her, Lulu Wang, and she liked it, and I felt first of all, I felt seen. I felt very seen. I said, damn, that was beautiful. But it just reminded me just how damn good this movie is and how beautifully crafted it is.
Well, and I think that's what makes this movie special. Is I really think not everyone's going to connect with it, but I'll say the vast majority of people who have had a grandmother or grandfather and have been very close with them and have had them pass, or have seen them sick. I think this hits close to home. And even though this is a primarily Chinese family and Chinese American family, it affects like everyone. Everyone has this story. Everyone has a story of, you're driving away from your grandparents and you're waving by, and she's waving by. Yeah. And, it really emotionally, it wrecked me the first time I watched it. It really did.
Yeah. She said this about the film, and I gotta read this because I found it really interesting. I always felt the divide in my relationship to my family versus my relationship to my classmates and to my colleagues and to the world that I inhabit. That's just the nature of being an immigrant and straddling two cultures. And I gotta say, when I read that after watching it this third time, I was like, oh man, you really do have like a pretty great kind of grip at the idea of culture in this movie. I also got to say that really big props to not just Awkwafina, but Zhao Zhuzhen is incredible as Nai Nai. I love her every single moment that she's in here. If I had it my way, Zhao Zhuzhen would have been nominated for Best Supporting Actress. But somebody who I don't see get a lot of props in this, it's actually Diana Lin as her mom, as Lu Jian. As her mom, Billy's mom is puts on another powerhouse performance in this too, and especially even the brothers of the brothers, Hayan and Hao Hao, and Hao Hao, not Hao Hao, I'm sorry, Hayan and Haibin, who are the sons of the matriarch. They give great performances, but. Yeah, I mean, enough of the whole review aspect of this. I just wanted to ramble on just a little bit. I'm allowed to break my rules here and there. I'm going to break them again when we do Stalker, for sure, because there's no way I can't actually, give my actual full-on thoughts about that movie. But
I mean, I think it's hard when you talk about some of these films not to, like, just gush over them, because you're so excited to finally get to express what inside all these films makes them so great. Yeah. Like, for me, one aspect of this was the cultural differences it was showing versus East and West, and the differences and similarities in a way. Yeah. So, and they even go into it, like they even have dialogue with it, mostly the brothers and Awkwafina. And one part that I really dug is that the East is more concerned as a familial unit, whereas the West is more concerned about themselves. Yeah. So the West, we're considered selfish in a way. Like, we only think of ourselves. We only try to do for ourselves. Whereas the East, they've always been family. You look at Japanese culture, they don't put their elderly into nursing homes. They bring them into the house. And that's even other cultures that are in the West. I know, like, Mexican cultures, y'all do very much the same thing, as you bring the grandparents into the house generally. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just really interestingly kind of dissected in here about just, I think, I can't remember, I literally just watched the film like hours ago. I think it was Haibin who says here in the East, our life, it's not just your life. Life is everyone's whole. It's a familial thing. That life is not just important to you. It's important to every single person who inhabits the person who's going to die. And it brings up a really interesting thought about, the East and Western kind of experience, even though, we don't actually spend a lot of time in New York in this film. Like, we're there for the beginning.
Very, very little. Very little.
Yeah, we're in the beginning and the end. That's it. But, we still have that Western look of life through Billy, who comes in and she battles with the idea of, like, whether to tell Nai Nai that she's sick or not and she's going to die. And the whole time. And this is why I think that Aquafina's performance is so incredible. It's not just even the dialogue; it's that facial expression that that Aquafina has all the time during this film. That is just constantly contemplative and saying like, I need to tell her because like it's wrong to lie, but deep down, what's it called? She wants to still do what is right for her family, even though she really wants to tell her.
And I love that part where the uncle is talking to Aquafina. He's like, why would you put that burden on her? That's for us to take.
Yeah.
That's why we don't tell her. That's for us to live with. And her, when she passes, she passes.
Yeah.
She doesn't have to worry that she's sick.
Yeah. And that's really one of the things I had in here about, he says the emotional burden is for us to have, not her. And we also find out that, of course, Nai did the same with her husband, Billy's grandfather. She didn't tell him that he was going to die until he was literally in his deathbed and he was about to die.
Mm-hmm.
And that emotional burden is taken by everybody else. So that way, that person who's already suffering doesn't have to suffer much more. And yes, it is very odd watching this film through a person who's only lived in the West, and never really has gotten to know the cultural differences of the East. And the whole time you're there, like, of course, you should tell her. Like, she has the right to know what's happening with her own body. But at the same time, you're like, why make her suffer more than she's already suffering? Of course, like, it's her body. She's already feeling sick of her body. She shows it. But, allow.
I mean, in some way, I'm sure she kind of knows in a way. I mean, I don't know how you couldn't. But I actually, from my standpoint, I can totally understand where the family is coming from. And if I had a terminal illness, I wouldn't want to know either. Just to be honest, just be like, because as they said, it's the fear that gets you versus the illness.
Yeah. Yeah. And then what's it called? That emotional burden is ours to take, and really for us to, it's, you're not just working through, grief, but this idea of like that you had to, take the pain of her sickness onto yourselves too, and kind of go through that yourselves, which, it's very beautiful when it happens as a family, because, you're like, you're not alone in feeling this way, because everybody around you is feeling sort of the same amount of pain that you're feeling. And I love that part that you're talking about when he's talking about the emotional burden, when he goes, one of my favorite lines is like, just let the man smoke. He goes, don't tell your father what to do, like, let him smoke. Or what, in which I will say, this film has it has this very emotional gut punch parts in this film, but it also has those very nice comedic moments, like
very few, like the one where they're asking if he wants a bath, and she's like, I don't know, you want a bath?
Yeah, or when he's like, what do you want? He goes, oh, you can call me beautiful. And he's like, no, I mean, like, what do you want as in the treatment? Like, you want to get a bath? Or like when they're at the grandfather's grave, and he's like, don't give him cigarettes. Like, he's what's it called? He quit. And
he quit. He's like,
no, he didn't. And he's like, whatever. Like, he's dead. What's he gonna do? Hurt him? Like, just let the man smoke. And
and to go more in on that scene, so me and my wife watched part towards the end of this. She watched this with me the first time.
Yeah.
So yes, she wept like a baby too at the end.
Yeah.
Anyways, but that scene to me just shows that every culture in their way, there is a ridiculousness that is to the mourning ritual and to death itself. The way we believe, the way we see. And there's just like, you got to peel the orange for me. It's like, but he's gone. It's dead. But and their culture, they believe that, for good things and stuff, he's going to eat that.
Yeah, 100%, man. And it's the same instance when we talk about the Mexican culture and we do the whole Dia de los Muertos and we do the ofrenda and we put the food there and all that stuff for them, which is
and not only that, I got to bring this up because I can't just let the Mexican culture and the Chinese culture take it all, because in Cajun culture we have wakes, and we literally sleep in the funeral home with the casket, like all night, that's how we treated my grandfather. I hung out with my grandfather's casket the whole night. Yeah, and let me tell you, kind of weird. It's weird.
Yeah, exactly, and you know, the film is kind of examining that in a sense. It's like, you know, it's the kind of the ridiculousness in those type of rituals, but it's also what makes the beauty of our cultures. You know, the fact that we care about someone so much that we have to peel that orange, that we feel like it's a necessity to peel that orange, so that way, what's it called? The spirit knows that we're thinking about them. And I think that's just the beauty of what this film kind of represents within culture in there.
And I think this was another part that just the genius of it, where they had funny moments even in this mourning ritual, or this ritual asking the dead grandfather, you know, for hopes and prayers and good luck. And it's just where Aquafina's like, do I just take a shot? And she goes and takes a shot. They're like, no, you pour it over the ground. She's like, oh shit.
Or what's it called? They're like, I think Zhao and Nai is like, what else do I have to say? And then they're like, they keep bowing, and they're like, are we gonna keep bowing? Like, this is getting like, we're gonna get dizzy or something. I think they said. Or what's it called? He's like, oh, could help bless my sister, and she's like, oh, so I can win like a lot of money at the city that she was gonna go to, I think. And I was like, oh, like, you know, there's those instances of like, you know, very beautiful instances of like humor in this movie, because you need it in a movie like this. There's
it's not like ridiculous humor.
Yeah,
it's like that humor that families would say.
Yeah,
like this is what this movie is just. It's all about the family unit, and it's all just seems so real, and that's what is great about this movie. It really is like they brought together all these different actors, but they could be a family to me. They could all be a living, breathing family. This could be a documentary.
Yeah. And it's really interesting how it's juxtaposed in that scene compared to the other family that was there, where the lady was just like harrowingly crying. And then you have these other ones who are this other family who's just there they're just paying their respects, but they're like cracking jokes and stuff, and they're having fun. And it's like, you know, there's just the different ways that different families kind of manage mourning and loss. And
I really like Billy Mother's take on this, because she even says it's so ridiculous that some people, you know, they show their emotion by crying and wailing, and because I don't do that, I'm looked down upon.
Yeah, that
was such a deep scene and so true. It's like who are we to judge how you mourn?
Yeah, and it's something that, you know, has gone down in my family, and let's go with other losses, and they're like, you know, oh, because we weren't, you know, because somebody wasn't like crying their eyes out and screaming in terror because what happened. That doesn't mean that, you know, it's like that they were like, oh, because you didn't love them that much. And, you know, it's ridiculous. Like, you know, we all mourn our different ways, but the beauty of what she's trying to say is that we mourn as a family. We mourn together, because this movie, once again, is about the familial unit. And, yeah, and what's it called? Something else I had to bring in here, because while we're on the topic of, you know, the familial unit and all that stuff, there was something I really had to bring up into here about the what's it called? The vulnerability. That's what she's scared of the most. What's it called? Billy's mom. It's her looking vulnerable to others, and in a sense that it's okay to be vulnerable. But at the same time, it's like, you know, if I'm not feeling that I should put that out, I don't want to force myself to put it out, just so that way I could, you know, satisfy others and say like, okay, she's mourning the correct way.
And you know, the cab ride when Billy's mother is there and Aquafina's crying, and Billy's mother is crying as well, but you know, one of those silent, like, I don't want anybody to see me cry. Yeah. And it's just such a strong scene of them driving away from Nai, and everyone, and it's not just driving away from Nai, it's driving away from their homeland, from where they came from, and it's just you can feel that pain.
Yeah. So we're gonna be going into commercial break, but when we come back, we're gonna continue discussing Lulu Wang's The Farewell. But in the meantime, you guys need to listen to these wonderful commercials made by some wonderful people who make podcasts over at the Nerdcore Podcast Network. So we'll catch you guys in a bit, and we'll see you when we come back. Hey, I'm Raul Ayden Mendoza, and this is
Jabril Newton.
And we are the hosts of High Flyer Radio. And finally, pro wrestling has come back to the Nerdcore Podcast feed in the form of a show hosted by Jabril and I. And we talk about everything and anything in the pro wrestling world, on Mondays at 3 p.m. Central Standard Time.
Nothing's off limits. Whatever you guys want to talk about, if it's from AEW to SmackDown to Raw to NXT, nothing's off the table. We can talk about it.
We're going to talk all about it. And if you can get it a day early, you should go to the www.patreon.com/thenerdcore and pledge to the tiers on there so you can get this show and a lot of shows days early before anybody else gets to hear it. But enough talking about it. We'll go ahead and see you there at the Squared Circle. Oh, yeah. Don't tap out. Tune in.
Hey, it's Ashley from the Gamer Corps. You may remember me from such episodes as Big Screen Mess, Mo Money Mo Platforms, and Brad Can Read. Tune in weekly as I blab with my co-hosts Raul the Nerdy Chicano and Brad the Random Germ about the latest news in gaming and gush over what we're playing at the moment. Oh yeah, and we got the deals too. Keep up with the latest deals in gaming and what's happening as I mediate Brad and Raul fighting like a married couple. Will Death Stranding ever come out? Will Cyberpunk 2077 live up to the hype? Is a next gen worth a $500 console price tag? And has there ever been a movie adaptation of a video game that's been done right? It's all on the Gamer Corps podcast, everywhere where podcasts are.
Hey everyone, my name is Raul, the Nerdy Chicano, and I am the host of The Impaired Files. The Impaired Files is an interview show brought to you every Thursday on the Nerdcore podcast feed. And I interview people such as filmmakers, content creators on YouTube, and podcasters like Colton Geschwander. And if you want to listen to that early, a whole week early, all you got to do is go to the Patreon and pledge to the $1 tier. And if you want to listen to it with the general public, then go to the Nerdcore podcast feed on anchor.fm/thenerdcore. And the case is closed, but it's not classified. See you guys there.
Hey guys, this is Brad, aka Young Yoda. Raul said I had to make an ad, so that's what I'm doing. It's supposed to be for Unstructured, but as you guys know, you can freaking catch me everywhere when it comes to this podcast feed. You can find me on the Nerd Cores, on Gamer Cores, on Nerdy Chicanos sometimes when I get lost. But for this particular one, I want you guys to go check out Unstructured. The Raul gave me free reign to do whatever I want to do. I don't know what he was thinking. So go hear me talk about LeBron James and Taco Tuesday, vaping, so many other freaking weird topics that chimichangas, that's a good one. Shout out to Deadpool. And yeah, I guess this is the end of the ad. So if you guys want to find me, you can find me all over the place on this podcast feed. Anyways, thank you guys for listening. I love you all. And nerd up.
Hello, guys and gals, and you're listening to The Ladies of Nerdcore. I am your host, Daniela Nunez, and along with my amazing co-host, Ashley Garcia, we discuss many things like social impact, pop culture, political realms, and any controversy surrounding the Nerdverse. Tune in and listen to us bi-weekly on the Nerdcore podcast feed, and we will love to chat and hear your thoughts on our wonderful show. And thank you again for listening to The Ladies of Nerdcore.
What's up, everybody? It is me, Raul, and I'm one of the hosts of the Nerdy Chicano Show. The Nerdy Chicano Show is a comedic show brought to you by Luis and myself, and it comes to you all every Sunday on the Nerdcore podcast feed. You can catch it a day early by becoming a Patreon and supporting us at the $1 tier. And I don't really know how to explain this show other than it's fun. We get to talk about whatever we want, and it helps you move on in the week. So if you want to catch the Nerdy Chicano Show every Sunday at 8 a.m. All you got to do is go to anchor.fm/thenerdcore, and we'll see you there, baby. Hey, everyone, I'm Raul.
And I'm Brad.
And we're the hosts of the Nerdcore Podcast, the podcast that talks that nerd. Not on this ad, right?
Not
and
on this one.
We come to you every Monday, Tuesday, and Saturday. On the Mondays, we talk the news. That's the box office, the news of the week, and your trailer talk if there is any. And on Tuesday, we have our theme review. And on Saturday, you have a Saturday morning review, usually movies that have come out in the week or anything we want to talk about. Right, Brett?
Exactly. Whatever we want to talk about, this is our show. If you don't like it, then you don't have to listen.
We're the flagship show of the Nerdcore podcast feed, and we can be found everywhere you can listen to podcasts like Stitcher, Apple Podcasts. So if you want to talk that nerd stuff with us every Monday, Tuesday, and Saturday, make sure you tune in. And Brad?
Young Yoda out.
All right, you're back after commercial break here with us on the Cinema Condition as we discuss Lulu Wang's The Farewell. Thank you guys for listening to those wonderful commercials. It means a lot that you guys get to actually listen. You actually listen to them if you actually listen to them, right? But, those wonderful people make shows on the Nerdcore podcast feed at anchor.fm/the Nerdcore, CORPS. So if you want to check out those shows, right now the only two shows that are really, really active are the live show and the main show. So if you guys want to go listen to those, of course, go to there. You can also go to the Twitch, and on the YouTube on YouTube where you search up the Nerdcore or twitch.tv/Nerdcore and all that wonderful stuff. But it's a pandemic. I'm not forcing anybody else to record at the moment. So the only shows that are active are the ones where it's just Brad and I. So go and check those out and have a fun time when you listen to those shows because they're definitely something. So we're back and we're discussing The Farewell. We've discussed a little bit of the emotional vulnerability, the emotional burden, and really about the whole idea of loss and grief in this film first. And one thing I wanted to get more into was definitely this the idea of culture in this film because it's something I noticed even more. I noticed it the first time, but it's not something where I was like, oh crap, like I'm actually noticing it really hard. From the first time is when Billy goes to the hotel and the guy is asking her about like, oh, what's the difference? What's better, China or U.S.? And then it gets even more when the family, I can't remember her name.
It's the aunt though.
The aunt, yes. The aunt is talking with Billy's mom about their kids and how their kids are being seen as more of an investment and all these things. Like one is like one is about like how much money they're gonna bring to the house and then Billy's mom sees.
It's not just that. It's they go into basically the capitalism part of it, which China is a communist country still, technically, but capitalism has become far more prevalent in China through the years. Yeah. And this scene really is pivotal in showing that, and that, well, how difficult would it be to make $1 million in America? And they're like, Aquafina's like, pretty difficult. And the aunt's like, well, it'd be easy in China. And then the mother interjects and she's like, well, where are you sending your son Bao to school? And she's like, that aunt kind of has to pretty much go quiet there because she's sending him to America. And it's like you said, this is a very cultural sensitive movie. You can feel the tension in the scene.
Oh yeah,
between both families.
And then she also says about how does she think Nai feels like she's growing old and the kids aren't even around to see her, and that's another one that hits. It's like, oh crap, like
Oh yeah, that was a low blow. Not gonna lie, considering like her family, they went to Japan, so that's still closer than China, but it's still not China.
Yeah. And it's, we get a really interesting take at the, the idea of like culture. But Billy interjects and says that, that America isn't perfect. We have problems with guns. We have problems with healthcare. And they're like, well, China isn't perfect either. And there's just big differences. And then something comes up that I got to say that I find really, really, really interesting. When they said, well, don't criticize China. You're still Chinese. And then Billy's dad says, well, we're American. We have an American passport. We're Chinese American. And then his brother goes, I will always be Chinese. Even though he moved to Japan for work, of course. But he says, I will always be Chinese.
Well, and this brings up the question, does he really believe that? Or was he trying to gain favor with his mother?
Yeah.
Which, that brings on a whole nother set of questions in the culture of, are you just trying to gain favor with, the matriarch?
Yeah. But and it brings up that really interesting discussion that, that Lulu was saying in that quote. It's like, when you're an immigrant, this is kind of like the life that you're kind of torn between two different worlds. Billy remembers those beautiful memories from China, but she doesn't really remember a lot about the culture that's here. Mm-mm. She knows the culture that she's always been around. And when she comes back, it's so hard for her to maneuver it. She's like, how can I, still respect my family, but also go ahead and tell my grandmother that she's dying, because that's what I know is the right thing to do, because I've been living in the U.S. for as long as I can remember. But
Yeah, so she's basically, it's basically being stuck on a razor's edge in a way.
Yeah.
Is either way you're gonna fall off.
Yeah, and then you have this idea of like, being seen as, the Chinese American, because you're not really from here because you only spent a little bit of years. But
did you catch the whole piano conversation?
Yeah.
That scene's great in that at the very end of that story where they say the pastor, or I guess whoever was running the church, gave them the keys so she could practice. And her family goes, "They gave you the keys?"
Yeah.
And they're like, "Yeah." They couldn't believe it. Like, it was unbelievable that someone would do that. And then they go, "Well, that's America."
Yeah, and it's also quite interesting when and that's why I gotta bring it up again, the framing in this movie. That whole scene is framed so brilliantly. It's never a close up. It's always kept in this like medium shot where it's showing all of the family, so it can really kind of bring you in like, oh crap, like we got everybody here and we're having this argument, and the Nine Eyes like, no arguing here. But she's it's all this going back and forth, and it's just framed so brilliantly where Lulu's like kind of keeping that tension there. And I gotta say, a lot of filmmakers in a lot of the movies that I've seen, like when it comes to the tension, like it's really hard to keep that tension there. But she does it brilliantly, just brilliantly here, not leaving from that angle and just keeping it in that medium shot and keeping it going between the different cuts in between. But yeah, and it's an interesting discussion when they bring it up here with about being Chinese or being Chinese American.
There was really no final answer to it. It was basically what Aquafina had told the hotel manager. It's different.
It's different.
Like neither are wrong. They're just different.
And it's that identity crisis that a lot of us who are stuck between two worlds kind of have to feel like, especially living here in the United States, like, some of us, we didn't cross the border crossed us. And, we're still living in between two different worlds. And, in this film, it's not just, that argument. It's also when she goes to the spa and they do the cupping. Mm-hmm. And she's like, I don't want to do this. And then, the aunt says, what's it called? Pain is good. Like, feeling a little bit of pain is good. And
you know what I always think about in that scene?
Yeah.
Is high school gym. I know I'm going on a tangent here, but
no, it's fine.
High school gym, weightlifting, and our gym instructor, he had this saying, "Pain is your friend."
Yeah.
Let me tell you, I hate that fucking saying.
Yeah, because you were like, yo, man, I can't be picking up, 75.
Like, man, I was squatting like 400 pounds, so I guess pain was my friend because I was doing it pretty easy, but
yeah.
Shit.
Yeah, you were like, dude, just please stop with this. Just let me go.
I didn't skip leg day.
No, but yeah, and she was like, a little pain is good, and then and then going out and having her she wants her grandmother to rest so bad, but the grandmother feels, and it's a very cultural thing. It's like, no, I have to be the one to plan the wedding. I have to be the one to do it. And like, you guys,
well, she's the matriarch, of course she is.
Yeah,
and you ain't gonna tell anything to keep her staying home and not doing that.
Yeah, and it's why Lulu, that's why Billy's mom is like, that's why she didn't like living in the U.S. because she didn't have any control over there. She wasn't living in her house anymore. She was the matriarch, of course, but she wasn't at her home. She didn't have the same. And here she feels like she is the center of the family, of course, and it is felt from the first second that Billy walked into that room that Nai is the center of the family. But in China is where she feels like she has the most control because this is where she feels her culture is more close to her.
Other than getting lobster at the wedding, yes.
Other than them absolutely screwing her over, not giving her lobster. I really thought the first time around, I was like, oh, me knowing the grandmothers as well as I know, especially in my culture, I would have known that she was about to throw down, bro. And I was like, nope.
Someone was about to catch hands.
Somebody was about to catch hands. And they end up getting freaking lobster, man. They end up getting it.
No. They had crab. That was crab.
Yeah, but they didn't end up getting it. So, yeah. And it's such a great depiction of just how Billy has to maneuver this culture and how it's such a difficult. And there was something else that was there. Oh, I'm glad I remembered this at the last minute. When they're at the doctor, when she goes after the hospital, right? And Nine-Nine's there, like, oh, he's young, he's not married, he's a doctor, and he speaks English. He goes, this is good for Billy, like, you should go for him. And it's like, yeah, all our grandmothers, at least mine, would do the same thing.
That's I think that's everyone's parents and grandparents.
Yeah.
They don't want to see you alone. They feel like being alone is a hardship.
Yeah.
And it's to me, it really wasn't. Like, I love finding my significant other, but that wasn't what I was focused on most of my life. I was career oriented, and I really think this is Billy's generation of the millennial generation in a way. Sorry to bring up that word. But that really is of she's strong, she's independent, and she wants what she wants in life, and she's going to get her career started and then maybe a family.
Yeah. And that's kind of what Nine figures out at the end too. Is she's like, it's okay. Your career's first before your love life. And that's what she says, like, career before her marriage. And she's like, and even when, Billy describes that she lost the she didn't get the fellowship, and she feels like, it doesn't feel like she would worry, but she also feels like she's kind of brought like some disappointment to her family. And she says, you're going to take your time. It's not, you have a brilliant mind and it's going to come. It may not happen today, but you're going to have to keep working hard. And it's just, that's just where Billy kind of surrounds herself, and Nine, feels the same way. And it's just, which is just this incredible depiction of, I'm not Chinese, of course. I don't know if this is the culture exactly, but, just seeing it depicted this way where it's not just a depiction of the culture, but it's a depiction of when you have this kind of a internal struggle of what you are to identify as, because you're coming from America, but you were born in China and of this place, and you remember, like she says, she remembers the garden she used to play in. She remembers playing with her grandfather, but like she's coming back to the homeland, but like, does the homeland, want her back?
And that's another part I think that a lot of people can understand is this aspect of, when we leave where we're from and we come back, it's never going to be the same as we left it. Generally not. I'm from Biloxi, Mississippi. Mm-hmm. And if people don't know, I left Biloxi, Mississippi in 2004. Mm-hmm. So me and my family moved to Georgia at that time. And in 2005, Katrina hit. Mm-hmm. And we went back in probably 2007, 2008. Nothing was recognizable. And that's really, I really felt that with Billy, in that she remembers all these great things and all these joyous memories, and they're just gone. Yeah. It just time and, time has taken over and basically has, moved them on. Like, they don't exist anymore. And I really felt that in that that's exactly what time and Katrina did to me, is everything that I remembered, it just didn't exist anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just, she like, that's all it is. All she has is memories. And I had to bring up other stuff too. And by the way, this is another instance of an incredible scene in this film that I always got to bring up. But when they're looking for the earring, of course, right? And then, Billy kind of breaks down and it's like, we left here. I had all these wonderful memories and we left. And then, you didn't even tell me when my grandfather died, and you wouldn't even let me come to the funeral. And all I have is, these memories, but, I never even got the chance to sign to say goodbye. And it's like, there's where you really start to, see like, yeah, maybe there is kind of there's negatives into this culture. This idea of like not letting the child, leave school to go say goodbye, which that's something that I'll go ahead and say that's not something that happened within my culture. Like I'm telling you, we were like, fuck school, we're gonna go say goodbye, but
where I got to put that was the opposite for, for my family is school was always important. Like I would miss family gatherings, I would miss family reunions. School was always the main thing. It was always career oriented. And
no, I mean like family reunions, like we didn't skip school for that. No, I'm saying like deaths in the family. Like
luckily there weren't that many deaths while I was going to college. My grandfather did pass, but that was really the only one that I didn't go to, and my dad mostly went to that. So that's another thing. I mean, this film hit so hard, and that I could relate to so many parts of it, even though my background is completely different from what Billy's is. But at the same time, it's like they run parallel.
Yeah. And that scene is just so incredibly. That's another commentating on the culture issues. Like, and you can see from Billy's mom's face, it's like, I kind of did fuck up there. It's like I should have let you say goodbye. But she also brings up a good point. Why want to stay in China and have your grandmother see you so sad, and she not knowing why you're so sad, and her not being able to do anything, because if she did anything, she would find out about how she's going to die. But that's just the idea of culture in this film is just so beautifully constructed and just so well communicated. I gotta really bring up, just gotta give props where they're due. Is just so beautifully constructed here. And we got some more stuff. I believe you said you had two things you really had to bring up in here.
Well, I already brought them up.
So. Oh, you did?
that was just how the ridiculousness of death. And then the family unit. Those were the two main things that I really get out of this movie. And it's just, I'm just amazed. This is Lulu Wang's second film.
It doesn't feel like a second film.
No, it's to me, it's a perfect movie to me. It's just every frame, and I didn't get this till watching it on my TV. It's like every frame in this movie is done to like just precise, and it's like nothing in this movie is sloppy and nothing in this movie is out of place, and it's meant to be, and the dialogue fits in so well. And then the music, if we go into the music, that music just hits at the right moments at the right time. Like at that end, like that music hits, the grandma's waving, Billy's crying, the mom's crying, I'm crying. I'll just say, I mean, Lulu Wang is a force to be reckoned with. Yeah.
And I want to talk about that. I want to talk about that ending. So, after all that conversation they had, about her career and stuff. And, Nai Nai saying goodbye. And Nai Nai starts tearing up, which is a really beautiful part, because it's like the one person who they're trying to protect them from feeling some sort of pain. This is her moment. She's feeling pain for a different reason. It's that she has to say goodbye to her family, and she knows that they can't come and visit as often as they try to, but she knows that, hey, she still calls me, she still keeps in contact with me, but it still hurts for Billy to have to leave, because she, like they said it in the film. It's called Billy and Hao Hao are the only grandsons that she has.
My grandchildren that she has. She of course has the aunt there. But I believe that aunt is was she adopted or something? I don't know. I thought that was Nai Nai's like daughter.
I thought, or was that her sister?
It might be adopted.
I think, or did I hear that it was her sister's daughter? I think it was her sister's daughter, and because she said
that might make sense.
Yeah, because she said in the speech, she said that her Nai Nai treated her as her niece, that that she didn't have to treat her like that, but she still loved her so much, and she treated her like the niece that she was for her. So I think that was her sister's daughter, and she's what's it called? She's there, and those are the only ones. It's the only family she has, and the only family she has is I live so far away from her. So the only person who are in that house is just the sister, Mr. Lee, who basically does, Mr. Lee's just there.
Mr. Lee's basically just a warm body.
Yeah, it's like
That's really what's going on there.
Yeah, I gotta say, I love that first part where Mr. Lee just finishes his food and gets up, and they're like,
He gets up and goes, and like, yeah, I can get that.
Yeah, I was like, at first I was like odd, and then I think about it, I'm like, it's a man who doesn't even know about this family.
Well, I mean, that's like every old man ever. They just don't care anymore.
At a certain age, you're like, I really don't care about this conversation. I'm gonna get the hell out of here.
No, I don't care. I'm gonna go take a nap. Thank you for the food.
Thank you for the food. But yeah, it's just Mr. Lee's just there. He helps out Nai for what he needs. He eats with her.
I also think him and Nai have a consensual relationship in a way. Like when Nai has needs.
Yeah.
That's why he's next door.
Yeah.
But I'm glad they don't go more into depth in that, because I'm just looking at Mr. Lee. I'm going, that's got to be the slowest sex scenes ever.
Good Lord. But I was just like Mr. Lee. I was like, oh man, like, yeah. I was like, okay. I was like, this guy's just there to be there. But I mean, it's Nai does go into there like, yeah, like, this is just a man who, he goes, I need somebody to be around the house to, so I don't feel so alone, because
and so she's not just being. I think she said so she isn't just followed by her shadows. Is the way she put it.
Yeah. So then after saying Nai says goodbye, and Billy and Billy's mom go ahead and cry, and they go back home, and Billy is walking through the streets of New York, and she pauses and she leaves, and she lets out her growl that her Nai taught her. And we go into a black screen, and we are met with a video of Nai in real life doing her exercise, and it says that after 6 years, I believe it was 6 years, right? After 6 years of her diagnosis, she's still with us.
She's still there. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you missed the important part on that scene where Billy lets out that her grandmother taught her. Is it before it goes to the black screen, it goes back to China.
Yeah, and the
birds focuses
birds
on a tree on China, and the birds fly away. So it's like saying that even though she's in New York, she still has that
presence,
Chinese culture, and that family.
Her presence is still felt in China. Like,
exactly,
you could be miles away, but your presence is still felt there, and it's so you're still part of the homeland, as much as you feel like you're so disconnected, as much as you feel like you don't belong here, you're still part of this homeland. But yeah, I gotta say that this movie is genius. And this movie, unlike a lot of movies, it understands what it is. It completely understands what it is, and it understands how beautiful and intricate it is. And I gotta say that for a second film, I thought that I would think that this is like the fifth film in somebody's filmography, and there's a lot that Lulu Wang is going to be bringing in the coming years of her career with this movie, because this movie really shows how much expertise there is for somebody who's barely made their second film, and yeah. I love this movie, and I'm glad that we were able to discuss it, because I said no way we're not discussing this. Like, this was my favorite movie of 2019. There's no way we discuss the themes of this movie, because there's so many important stuff going on.
This movie has so much depth to it.
Yeah.
That I don't think people realize just by looking at the cover or not understanding what this film is. I mean, I don't think I fully understood what this film was. I just knew I heard great things about it, and I just wanted to see it in theaters when we were allowed to see it in theaters.
We were allowed to see it in theaters, yeah.
But it's one of those that I'm very glad I took the time out, and I took my wife.
Yeah.
And we went and we watched this, and it's one of those movies that I will never forget. It's easily in my top 10. It might be in my top 5. I haven't really gone and looked at my top 10 in a while, but it is a perfect movie to me.
And of course, how can I leave without talking about that? Before we leave, of course, how can I not leave without talking about the drinking game, right? Poor Groom. Poor Groom.
I really want to play that. Just, I mean, but yeah, that Groom was horrible at that game.
Yeah, it was really bad. Really bad.
And then he ends up just, and I think every man's been there. Well, men who drink anyway, but you've drunk to the point where you're just in tears. Like, you don't know anymore. You're just done.
Yeah.
And you just find a bathroom to lock yourself in and call it a night.
Yeah, and then I'm glad once again. I'm glad that in that scene it was Aquafina there. It was Billy there to help her. Once again, a representation of like the pain is felt from with the family. Like they weren't gonna leave him alone to go and fix it himself. Like no, he was gonna be there and be with you, and you're gonna be okay.
I did enjoy the whole photo, and Nine-Nine's like, "Why are you crying?"
He's crying, dude. Tears of joy. He goes, "Don't worry about it." But yeah, that was our conversation on the farewell. And this is the last time that Brad's going to be on this show for this season. He'll be back next season. But thank you, man. I know that this was a very what's it called? First of all, when I came to you and I was saying like, I think I'm going to make a new feed and I'm going to make a new podcast, and you're like, why not put it on the same feed? But I was like, I kind of want to build out a new feed and do this show on its own feed. But what have you thought about your 3 appearances on the show?
Let's face it, I did choose movies that I personally love and that I personally want everyone else to listen to. My first was Ikiru, of course. My favorite Kurosawa movie. Kurosawa would be my favorite director, and Ikiru is one of those, like, it's another movie I relate to. Just based on the whole subject matter of a government bureaucrat who, is basically there stamping papers until a health scare makes him get up and actually accomplish something. Then you had Grave of the Fireflies, which I still believe, and although I haven't watched Come and See, and I don't plan on watching Come and See, I believe is still the most depressing movie I've seen. But it is a different aspect on the war movie. And that's what I really think we've seen a lot this year, Raul, is different takes on war movies than we're used to. Yeah. Because when it comes from America, it's very glamorized, it's very grandiose, it's very, hoo-ah, like we kicked their ass. But when you look at it from the other aspect, you just look and like I never want to go to war ever. Yeah. It just looks horrible. And it's a hellish landscape with collateral damage everywhere. Yeah. And then we get to The Farewell, my favorite movie, 2019, The Family Unit. There's so many parallels in this that to my life, and I'm going to say it, most people's lives, they're going to relate to this movie in some way or another, and it'll touch them, and they'll think of their own family. And that's what I think makes this movie special, is no matter what culture you come from, you still think of someone in your family in this way.
Yep. So thank you, man. I very much enjoyed my time talking with you on 3 episodes of this podcast, and we're gonna go ahead and finish up. But of course, Bradley, where can they find you other than the Nerdcore podcast feed?
They can find me on Twitter, Instagram at randomgerm101. If you want to play on PlayStation, randomgerm101. Tilbrand.com. At This Is Local Love, if you'd like to buy a beanie. So, I'm just out there doing stuff, Ro.
Yeah, I put out the best.
I'm trying to support you the best way I can, and the way I've always said is I'll just show up.
Yep. Once ago I put out the bat signal, and that's when Brad knows, like, hey, coming to work. Hold on, I'm coming.
I might be a little late, Like tonight, I know we did this a little later and apologize, but things had to be taken care of beforehand. They were taken care of, and I got on here, and I really like this podcast because it's the one podcast in our repertoire that I actually have to be serious in some form. You forced me to be serious in this, and I think it's some of our best shows in a way because just the love of these movies just pour out. And that's what I really get from every other guest you have on here. Because let's face it, I do listen to. I think I told you this one and Impaired Files are probably my favorite out of the podcast. Yeah. Although the live show is up there, I'm not gonna lie. That's just fun, and it's just fun to hear the serious take and to get you. And I don't know if enough people tell this to you, but you're a good host. Like. I couldn't be a good co-host if you weren't a good host, because you're the serious guy to my unserious nature, and so you keep the boat moving as I keep trying to add water to it to sink it. Yeah, and in a way, we make it to land, and it's all good.
Yeah. And that's what it's all about. That's the one thing you kind of get from this podcast, just how much people love movies and how much there is to discuss in it and how much we think like, oh, we barely touched the surface. We're like 40 minutes in and we're already kind of getting so into it, but we barely even touched the surface. But yeah, next time you're going to be hearing from Brad is on the Cinema Condition Season 2 as he comes back to discuss Andrei Tarkovsky's Stalker. But in the meantime, this is his last time in Season 1, and we'll see him in the next season. But without further ado, of course, you can follow me on the nerdcore.com and look at all my wonderful stuff I do on there, like reviews. I'm slowly doing my 75 Films from Asia reviews on there. So I'm doing all that wonderful stuff. Follow along there and read all that wonderful stuff that we got there. Brad makes reviews on there too. He just did one. Yeah, here and there. He just did one for The Last Dance. So go and check that out. And of course, I'm the Nerdy Chicano on both Instagram and Twitter. Make sure you leave a rate review on your podcast app of choice on Apple Podcasts and Stitcher. And yeah, there's this show is also on YouTube. So if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe, of course. You leave a like on this. Hey, thank you to everybody who got us so many views on the Love episode. Yeah, that's I'm gonna go ahead and say that was because of the conversation that we had, right? For sure.
Totally.
Yep, totally. But without further ado, this is the 26th episode. We're heading on to the final four. As next week, we invite Alex back again, Alex Flores, not Alex Almeida, to discuss 1988's groundbreaking, revolutionary anime film, Akira. But in the meantime, I don't have an outro. I just say to surround yourself with great art and watch great movies and watch whatever you can get your hands on and just expand your love of art. And I hope to see you guys on the next episode, but I'm going to go ahead and say goodbye. See you guys.